This is Ray.
And this is Andy.
And this is FDS Local Sports.
What's going on, Ray?
Andy, I got my Winnipeg Blue Bombers hat on.
Yep, I see that.
The CFL playoffs are right around the corner.
Yep, and Winnipeg's definitely going to be involved.
Winnipeg's going to be definitely involved in that Western Conference. And I'm very torn because my Ottawa Red Blacks are going to be representing the East.
Sure. Yeah, they're going to be in there too.
What happened to the Ticats?
They're going to be in the East there too, as well as the second seed, and we're going to see who makes it out.
All right, there you go. We're going to be talking more CFL on our podcast. Check it out. We got a big show this week. But let's talk about some local sports, Andy.
Let's do it. Because
this is crazy times in local sports here in the football scene. Let's talk about AUS real quick.
Let's go.
There was 2 games last week to end the regular season. And as you know, Andy, those 2 games had no meaning as far as playoff seeds go. They were already set by the end of week 7. Mm-hmm. Mount A was down at St. FX. St. FX won that game 38-15.
Okay.
And I'm declaring Keon Julian Grant as the most valuable player in that game. He goes for 130 yards with 2 touchdowns. Big game by Keon Julian Grant.
Can't argue with you there, and very disappointing that the Mounties didn't end the season on a positive note, but I'm glad to put the season behind us now.
There you go. Now, one other game I've got to mention, because this was a big game. Both these teams are getting primed ready for the playoffs. You had St. Mary's visiting Acadia. Acadia comes out, Andy, and wins this game 31-2.
Ouch.
31-2.
It's like a high school score.
Yeah. Villardo had a tough game in this. No sign of Caleb Scott in this game, so watch out for the Loney Bowl to see if he'll be back. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Dale Wright is your MVP in this game. He goes 182 yards with 2 touchdowns also.
Awesome. He might be the MVP of the league.
He could be.
We'll see.
Let's go talk about this weekend's game, because coming up this weekend, Andy, is the AUS semifinal. Acadia is traveling up to St. FX, and they're going to be playing in the AUS semifinal. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a fantastic football game. You have 2 top-notch coaches in Jeff Cummings and Gary Waterman. Mm-hmm. We've talked about them earlier this year and throughout the year.
Many times.
I have some key stats I want to run by you for this game because I find it absolutely fantastic, exciting.
Key stats.
Key stats.
Let's hear them.
Let's talk about the quarterback matchup. The top 2 quarterbacks in the AUS this year have been Acadia's own Hunter Gennard with 1,910 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Number 2 quarterback in the AUS conference is Bailey Wasdale.
Okay.
1,494 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
So we're just talking, when you're ranking them, you're talking passing yards.
I'm talking passing yards for the entire AUS conference this year.
Okay.
These 2 quarterbacks came out 1 and 2.
Got it.
Now, Caleb Scott missed a few games, so you got to take that into account.
Yeah.
Running backs, okay? The 2 top running backs when it comes to total rushing yards.
Yep. Let's hear it.
St. FX own Jordan Shashalakchuk.
Oh, boy. Yep.
Is first overall with 1,009 yards, 5 touchdowns. And number 2 is Acadia's own Dale Wright with 839 yards and 7 touchdowns. Wide receiver. Mm-hmm. The number 1 wide receiver when it comes to receiving yards in the AUS this year, Keon Julian Grant, with 638 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. And number 2, Cordell Hastings from Acadia, with 545 yards and 5 touchdowns. These guys are locked neck and neck. Like, this is going to be a fantastic. One last stat I'm going to give you.
Yep.
Defense. Let's talk about defensive stats. The number 1 defense in the AUS this year, Andy, was who?
One of the 2 teams facing off in this game.
Acadia University.
There we go. Yep.
They only allowed 18.3 points per game. Mm-hmm. And they also had 20 sacks on the season with 6 interceptions. Acadia has only allowed 19.5 points per game, 6 sacks, and 9 interceptions.
Big matchup.
If I was to tell you who's going to win this game, I have no clue right now. No. This is going to be a fantastic ball game. If the weather cooperates, I'm getting in my car and driving to Antigonish for this football game.
There you go.
All right?
Awesome.
That's your AUS semifinal.
AUS going to be a blast.
It's going to be a blast. Let's get over to high school.
Let's do it quick.
Because high school is going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. Playoff time.
Your 12-man final goes this weekend, Andy.
Yep.
This weekend. Riverview High School is traveling down to the Marsh to take on your Tantramar Titans.
Ooh.
What a ball game this is going to be.
Let's hope so.
The last time these two teams played this year, Tantramar beat them 58-1. Although last year, when Riverview played against Tantramar, they won that game in the Marsh.
Yep.
So, again, I expect Riverview to come out much more competitive in this game. And guys, for more information on this game, go to our website and check out the article done by our high school insider, Denny Dweron.
Yeah, nice little preview to the game up on the website.
It's up on the website. In our 10-man final, in our 10-man semifinal, we've got two big games as well. We got KV is going to be live. They're going to be in Moncton at Bernice McNaughton High School.
Yep.
That's going to be a great game. And then Harrison Tremble is going to be traveling down to St. Stephen to take on the St. Stephen Spartans.
Should
Trojans
be a heck of a game.
and Spartans.
Trojans and Spartans.
That's what's going on.
Yep.
So those are your high school games. And again, Andy, for those, you can also go to our website and check out our 10-man preview as well.
FirstDownSportsPodcast.com.
FirstDownSportsPodcast.com. Now, Andy, we got a little bit of a special treat for our viewers.
Absolutely. Let's transition to a very special interview that we've been setting up.
Yeah.
The head coach of the Miramichi Valley Pulamoo, my hometown, finally has, and my high school, by the way, finally has football. And we have head coach Rich Pirie. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are.
We have head coach Rich Pirie, and we'll be right back with that.
All right, guys.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Guys, here we are with our special guest interview we've been teasing for weeks. The head coach of the football team at my old high school, the Miramichi Valley Pulamoo. How do you say it? Pulamoo?
Pulamoo, yeah.
Pulamoo, perfect. I'm glad. He says it the way we say it, so that's
right,
good.
Good.
Rich Pirie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you.
Glad to be here.
I talk about how excited I am that we finally have football on the river on the show quite often.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to have you here because you've been involved from the start. So football on the river just concluded its third year.
Yes, we finished our third season this year. Yeah.
And you spent some time at James M. Hill as an assistant coach before taking over as the head coach. This is your first season as the head coach?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Just walk me through what brought you to Miramichi to be involved with the football, and if you know sort of how the conversation of football happening in Miramichi took place, how long it took. Just walk us through the process.
Well, I was living in Miramichi this will be my 11th year, and I moved there from Fredericton, so it was quite the change. I missed football.
Bit of a change,
there was no football. I grew up playing football as well, so I think it would have been this third season, 2011. A fellow by the name Claude Laberge. I don't know if you ever met him or not.
Not familiar with Claude, no.
Well, Claude Laberge started up a minor program. And it was kind of a hit or miss kind of thing. We got a bunch of gear donated. And then I believe in 2013, the 10-man league was in trouble.
Yep.
Down to 5 or 6 teams. And we were approached by Football New Brunswick, or I shouldn't say we. I say we because I'm part of the Miramichi Football Association
for sure.
now.
Yep.
But at the time, Claude Laberge and Keith Baker were approached by Football New Brunswick to start up a high school program to save the 10-man league.
Yep.
I don't know exact details as far as money and all that stuff goes, but it doesn't matter at this point, does it?
That's right.
So they received, we received support from Football New Brunswick. They approached the high schools. They did the whole, let's see how many can get here, how many get there. We had a lot of interest at both schools. Hence the MVHS program was started at the same time as James M. Hill Tommy's.
Awesome.
At that time, Miramichi Football Association was also created to help guide both high school programs and start up a minor program as well. And we So we started. So Martin Moyer, who's the head coach over at James M. Hill, is a very good friend of mine, says, we need you involved. Would you come help out? And I said, absolutely. Didn't even question it. And I said, yes, I'll be there. Whatever you need. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, just I need a defensive coordinator.
There you go.
Him and I have been pretty good friends for, I'd say 15, 16 years at that point. And so we kind of knew each other like brothers pretty much. So him and I were coaching James M. Hill for the first 2 seasons. And then Scott Dolliver was coaching at MVHS for the first 2 seasons. Unfortunately for him, he had to step back as he was having another child. So,
another child will always do it. Yep.
Yeah, so he didn't have a whole lot of time to commit.
Yep.
So he asked me to take over, and I said yes, because at that time nobody was really around to step up, take the head coach job, could you commit that amount of time.
That amount of time, okay. So
Scott had asked me, and I said yes, and he said, here you go, here are the keys, here's the list, and it's all yours. But I will say this, he helped me out through the season, administrative wise and managing wise. A lot of stuff that I didn't know that would go on as a head coach, right? Like a lot of stuff. A
lot more than you were thinking. Yeah.
When you started coaching 10-man football, had you ever played any type of 10-man ball in the past, or was it always 12-man ball?
No, I played 10-man for the Fredericton Gladiators for 2 seasons.
Okay, you did.
When I graduated high school, I went and played John Abbott for a season.
Yeah.
And then I blew out my knee, come back home. I think about 2 years after I came back home, they started up the Maritime Football League.
Okay.
And at that time, it was Fredericton, St. John had 2 teams.
That's right.
Moncton had 2 teams.
Yeah.
And Halifax had 2 teams.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty decent league. It was basically a bunch of what it is now, former university players, and a couple guys that went to Mount A that are former Black Hats like myself.
Yeah.
Approached that I worked with at the nightclubs and said, hey, you got to come out and play this football. It's 10-man. And at that time, you couldn't blitz the outsides.
Right.
You could only blitz up the middle. It was a little bit different than what you can do now.
Inside the tackles.
Inside tackle or gackle. Gackle's what they call it now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I was that was my first experience. I was kind of iffy at first. I was like, 10-man, it's... But then if you really think about it, it's only one less than the NFL.
That's right. For sure. Yep, exactly. 10 men on that big field compared to the NFL, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you have it, 2 best friends now all of a sudden coaching against each other on the river. Very similar to the basketball situation back in my glory days in '99, but we will not get into that. But I guarantee you know the 2 guys that I'm talking about. Now, so the first thing that kind of caught me off guard when I started hearing about football on the river, I was part of the rivalry, is when I found out that both teams play out of the same field that's on the Newcastle side. So how do the GMH players and coach feel about the fact that their home field right now is at Miramichi Valley High School?
There's a little bit of rumblings at first. I'm not going to go over to Newcastle and play, or we don't want Chatham over here, that kind of...
that fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's healthy competition, healthy rivalry. I think there's nothing really malicious behind it, but it was different at first, and now it's just a grin and bear. It's accepted now.
Just deal with it, right? It's the only place to play, right?
Exactly. Now, JMH is getting their own field next season. They did the renovations this year. There was just a little bit of an oversight was the only thing. One of the end zones back by the LBA, it was a hill and it's fenced, and we were just missing about 10 yards.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So anyway, they with some headway, some help, a lot of help. Martin did a great job of getting the field over there for next season. So
awesome.
Now you'll have 2 football fields.
Now the rivalry is real.
Yeah, now it's a legit rivalry, exactly.
For sure, yeah.
There's no sharing a field like the Jets and Giants.
Nothing like that.
No more Jets and Giants.
That doesn't work in Miramichi, that's for sure.
No, and did when we played each other, though. You would see
I bet.
Big crowd, for sure.
For sure.
It got bigger every year, too. It was real good.
That's good to hear. You mentioned a minor football program a little while ago when you were saying the startup, because the first thing I heard was like, wow, football. We had no football at all in Miramichi when I was growing up. It can't be easy to get a team together in high school when there's really no feeder program at all. How is minor football going in Miramichi?
Actually, it's picking up really well. Back to mention Scott, who was the former coach for MVHS.
Yep.
Has stepped in and helped out Claude. And now I think, I remember him saying that the enrollment has doubled since last year. So now, I mean, it's
big numbers.
It's
big
good
numbers,
news. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's especially for a hockey and football town, or a hockey and baseball town.
Yeah.
It's the word's getting out, and I think people are starting to realize, I'm hoping that they're starting to realize that there's room for football.
Absolutely. Every town eventually becomes a football town if it just gives itself a chance.
Yeah, there's room for all three sports, I believe. So, I mean, I hope to see it, and it's flourishing. You could tell.
Yeah. So it almost pains me to ask this question, but, talking to Scott Dolliver, on Facebook, talking to yourself, you guys definitely still, it's not easy to get the numbers out there, right? For the team.
Yes.
Especially to have a cushion for any kids that, might get hurt and can't play. Has it ever been discussed between you and your best friend, the idea of having one combined, especially where you're sharing a field for a while, one combined team on the river?
It's funny.
This is a conversation?
It's a regular conversation, not just amongst myself and the other coaches. It's you hear the rumblings around town.
Yeah.
Imagine if we had both schools together.
Yeah.
It would be a powerhouse of a team. I believe it would be.
The Pulamis or the Tommy Poos?
Well, we wouldn't.
I'm not a fan of it.
I think we'd have to we'd have to come up with a different name. I think
I would say so. Yeah,
but no, it's been ideally just because with the low numbers on both sides of the river, right? I mean, JMH had quite the turnout this year as opposed to the first 2 seasons I was there. MVHS, on the other hand, kind of declined a bit in numbers for player wise, but
okay.
I mean, me personally, I like the rivalry.
Yeah, for sure.
But for the bigger picture of football, one team, it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd say there's pros and cons to both.
It's a fantasy, right? It's a dream.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the Chatham kids will play with the Newcastle kids too well. Well, I think they would. I shouldn't say.
Yeah. No, we used to play spring league basketball together, and we, for the most part, could get along. But there was constant.
There's still that little jab there.
There was
right?
tension. There's
a jabs there.
Tension in the sheet.
Always tension.
Well, when I played for it was similar to Chatham, Newcastle. When I played for FHS, we had the north side and south side. I lived on the south side.
Gotcha.
All my friends lived on the north side, so we never had that second high school. Right. And now that when I coached at Leo Hayes for 2 years, and we had the separation.
And it happens organically,
right?
Oh,
yeah. But even growing up, it was my friends were new Northsiders, new Southsiders. So same thing, right?
Same thing.
I get it. And the same thing, river to side, that splits the city, right? So
yeah. Well, Rich, thanks a lot for making the trip down to Moncton and joining us in the studio and telling us about this. We're very happy. Again, you have no idea how happy I am that football is finally, my favorite sport is finally in my hometown. Yep. Thank you so much for bringing me some swag from my old school.
My pleasure.
The only MVHS gear that I have left is this jacket that I would be way too embarrassed to wear. That's about the only thing I can say about that. Everything else is falling apart. So.
I would want to mention that watch out for us next season.
Absolutely.
I'm very confident in our boys. We had a mix of grade 12s and grade 9s and 10s. We were pretty young yet old at the same time.
Young and old, yeah.
But the experience is going to be coming around a lot better next season. So I have a lot more confidence. There's a lot of growing pains. A lot of growing pains this season. I think it would be now the players know how I coach. Now I know what players respond to my coaching. So hopefully. I know we'll be better next season.
Awesome, and I know you're close to the situation, whether you want to be or not. So, what are you expecting from the Tommies next year?
Same thing.
Yeah?
We
more growth. Yeah,
more growth. See, with us, even though we went 0-6, our point differential went in half. We put up more touchdowns. I mean, we gave up a lot of points, but we at least put up some points this year. Tommies, their defense is tightening up. Their offense got real explosive this year. Real explosive. Hard to say. He's losing a couple key players though. Losing a couple but I expect Tommy's to be well prepared.
Well,
for sure.
That's for sure.
I have one comment for you as an official on the field.
Yeah.
Most of your players and parents that are going to be watching this may not realize it, but I'm an official with the NBFOA. And when I did your game against against Harrison Tremble this year, for a team that, like you said, you went 0-6. Those kids had a blast the entire game.
Yeah,
when they scored in that game, and there wasn't a kid enjoying that on your team. So I congratulate you and the town of Miramichi for that. I think it's great. Football's up there.
Thank you very much. We're glad to have it for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Rich.
Anytime, man.
All right.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right, Andy, that was fantastic interview with Coach Pirie from MVHS. Look at you. You got a nice new hat. It was great talking football in the Miramichi.
Absolutely, and it sounds like there's good things to come, so can't wait to next season to see what happens, because you heard Coach Pirie. We're going to see some W's next year.
W's, just like this one here.
Yeah, I guess you already had that W covered, huh? I didn't
did.
really have to do that.
You didn't have to do that.
Well, I'm glad I did.
All right. That's local sports for this week, guys. And just before we get out of here, I just have a quick little side note I want to talk about. Being a football official, I have the pleasure of getting to see these kids play minor football up to high school and into university if they go the university route. And it is unbelievable as a football official to be recognized by players knowing that I've been on the field with them during this time. I'm giving a huge shout out to number 84, Josh Hicks from Mount A. He played his final game in the AUS level this weekend. I was lucky enough to be in his last home game as well as his last game. We spoke at the end of the game, and Josh, I want to say thanks. You were a phenomenal football player, and I look forward to see what's next coming up for number 84, Josh Hicks.
Congrats, Josh.
Have a great week, guys. Enjoy those games we talked about.
Big game. See ya.
See ya.